to grow and scale to the headcount and the growth that we'd had from November 19th to, let's say, mid 2016, so like, was that less than 4 years to grow that fast? I think that being a young guy, I don't think I knew how to deal with that growth. At that time, we were winning so many awards and so many things, and I was talking on so many events and being recognized and all these things that were great, but I don't think I had the maturity and wisdom to know how to handle that. And so I think what ended up happening was I started to see 49 Financial as my only identity. I started to see my role from a CEO perspective as really the only thing that mattered. And I had made a very good thing, which is 49 Financial, the one thing. And I think whenever we do that in life, it can cause some real issues. And so I'm in this moment where I'm thinking, oh, I'm doing all this for a greater purpose. I'm doing all these things. But it had turned into where all I cared about was results, growing. I fell in love with the fame and all of these different things and the approval of others. And the Lord's way too kind to let me stay in that. So I'm August 2016. I'm sitting in our conference room. We've got clients in there. And, we're talking about their finances, meetings going well, and all of a sudden, I can't see anything. And I've never been blind before. I've never experienced that. But literally, I was going like this, and I couldn't see anything. And so, I'm a practical joker. People know that I try to live life, in a fun way. So I thought they played a joke on me. I literally thought somehow they turned the lights off and I don't know what they did. And these clients happen to be super nice and fun clients. So I thought they were in on it. So I literally started saying, guys, this is funny, but let's stop, And then they started to say, Travis, what are you doing? What's going on with you? And I get so worked up by this fact that I can't see anything that I fall back from my chair. And so now I'm on the floor and I'm just looking around. I can't really describe to you that feeling. You almost have to feel it to know. But then I'll never forget, out of this eye, I started to see peripherally light. And so I started kind of look at that and start to do this. I was like, oh my goodness, good, and then this one had peripheral. And it was probably 15 minutes later that my vision came back, but I had a pretty extreme vertigo, to the point where I couldn't drive a car. To the point where it was really difficult to walk straight. And lights crushed me. When I had lights on me, it was like I just couldn't, I couldn't be. And so we're obviously very concerned. And so we go and see doctors, and to really, make a long story short, we do every test you can, from vertigo to migraines to all the things that you'd think it could be to cause this. And, when we got kind of to the end, my doctor said, hey, I didn't want to do this, but we need to do a brain MRI. And I don't want you to get scared, but we haven't found anything else. And I got scared, let's just be honest. And so I'm very scared. And it's an interesting moment when you're waiting for the results of those. And there's an empathy I think I have for people that are in that MRI machine before they know their diagnosis, because they tell you don't move. And when it's a brain one, it's 45 minutes. And it's all sorts of noises, you're claustrophobic, you're all these things, so it's already just a terrible horror film, in my opinion. But then they tell you, we'll let you know in a couple days after, but get in there now. And I remember being in there, and it's kind of like, after a while, the noise, you don't hear it anymore. After a while, you don't realize it's claustrophobic or any of those things. It actually is an interesting place with you and God in a way. And I remember in there, all I could mutter out over and over is, God, I just don't want to die. I just come on, please. Just don't want to die. And so get out, and they say, give us a couple days. And I remember my sweet friend Hunter actually took me to just look over the lake for 4 hours. We didn't say a word right after that, because I was so emotional. I don't know. I didn't know it was going to happen. I had all these dreams of life and family and all these things. And it's a tough place to be. And so we wait a couple days, and I get a call from the doc. and he says, Travis, are you sitting? And that's when you're like, no, doctor, like, just talk. And he's like, his opening line was, we don't think you're going to die, but you have to have immediate surgery. Let's start there. And that's not what you want to hear. And so he describes to me that there's an acorn-sized cyst that they won't know if it's a tumor or not until they take it out to test it. And if we don't get it soon, there's no way to know how quickly that thing's growing. And what had happened was it had grown enough to where it was on that nerve that controls the vision. And it had gotten bigger for that moment that blocked it all. And so that's how it occurred. So I said, when do we need to do this thing? And he said, we're doing it in 1 week. I said, well, what's the surgery? He said, well, we got to literally take out your skull and fold it open and go in there. And I said, well, what's like the survival rate of these things? He said, well, there's risk. We believe that you'll survive. He said, but the hard part with the brain is if you cut or do anything incorrectly, even if you're just trying to move things out of the way, there are a list of things you'll have to sign, most of them just your senses, that we've seen a lot of patients lose. And and I think that's fair. I think they should tell me that. And so I remember going over that form with my wife and my mother. And it was interesting as we go over the form because they're crying and I'm just trying to keep it together. And then my dad kind of does the turnaround because he don't want me to see him cry. And then you have to shakily sign this thing that says, yeah, and next time I see all these people that I love, I may not be able to see. I may not be able to hear. I may not be able to have these things that we take for granted every day. And so then came time for the surgery. And I remember they get you ready, they're wheeling you back, and I remember having this really sweet prayer as my whole family was around, laying hands on me and comforting me, and they wheel you back, and then all of a sudden, you're out. You don't know what's happening, you don't know anything. And praise God, I came out on the other end, and the surgeon was so good, none of those negative effects happened. But what was neat was they tell you can't actually work for about a 3-month period. And what was neat about that, I say that because it was reflection time for me. That was the biggest moment in 49's history to actually hit these goals. Well, I'd been out a month, and then I had this 3 months. And so think about it. The thing that's your entire identity and really worth at that time, which was 49 to me, and this new brand that we'd come up with, I couldn't do anything with it. I wasn't allowed to have my cell phone, interestingly enough. And I remember in that moment that it felt like God kind of told me, in this season, Travis, I love you too much. I want you to do 49. I want you to be able to lead this company, but I want you to do it understanding that it's not your only thing, right? And the people on the other end of your meetings, these clients, right? The people, your associates, right? All these different people, they're the ones that matter, and the brand hopefully will live on, I'll decide. But I don't want you to make it your everything anymore. And I think for me, that's when the idea of two better than one, to me, took off. Because it was no longer just the idea that it was a good business model. It is a great business model, and that's awesome. But it was now, I actually survived that because of others I depended on that were in professional settings like surgeons. If I didn't have them, I wouldn't survive. Some people won't survive financially without us. I had a different perspective on the change we could have. But I think secondarily, I was so lifted up by my community, by 49, by my church, by these people. If you read that scripture, it goes on to say, woe to the person that falls that doesn't have anyone to pick them up. And I'll tell you, I almost think that to me that gets me more passion than even the two are better than one sometimes, because I fell. And I was completely fallen, and 49 shouldn't have kept going. But what it taught me was we had really good people. They could run this company. They could do this. And that two are better than one worked, right? It was for personal life and business life. And I think that restart that my brain needed, that was something that I think we'll always look back on. That proved that the model wasn't just a few people trying to grow a company. It was, we are doing this together. And I think it's really the foundation that's caused the things that have happened since then.